Hey everybody, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world. Today's guest is not only a registered nurse, but also a PCRM cooking instructor, and she is going to be making perfect for New Year's Day, a very traditional dish, Hoppin' John. She's going to be making it a Hoppin' John salad with cornbread croutons. Please welcome to the show all the way from Georgia, Deitra Dennis. It's so nice to meet you.
Glad to be here. Nice to meet you as well, AJ.
Yeah,
Actually, we met not formally, but in 2019, I was on the panel at Peapod, and you were there speaking.
Oh my God. Well, that's wonderful. And you actually were referred by PCRM to be on the show because I had written Dr. Barnard and I said, you got any great guests that can be on the show? And your name came up.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. Barnard, thank you.
It must be very rewarding being a PCRM cooking instructor. I have several friends, Sharon McRae and Linda Middlesworth. I don't know if you know them, and they do that as well.
Yes. It is. It is very rewarding.
So do you have any idea why Hoppin' John is a traditional New Year's Day dish?
Well, it kind of goes back to 1841. And in Charleston, South Carolina is where the term is, but in the South specifically, is for good luck. So Hoppin' John is really black-eyed peas and rice. Beans and rice is throughout the African diaspora. And when I say the African diaspora, is, of course, Mother Africa, Caribbeans, American South, and South America.
Nice.
But yeah.
How long have you been a PCRM cooking instructor?
May 2017 was when I became an instructor. Yes.
Nice.
And well, first of all, listen, my Southern hospitality, I need to go back. Happy New Year. And this is
I'm drinking broth. I'm actually drinking pot liquor, which is supposedly where I heard about it was in the South.
Yes, indeed. And being a Southern girl, the house wine of the South is sweet tea. So this is hibiscus tea. I'm not sure if you can see that. I know the light might be too bright, but hibiscus tea. So happy New Year to everyone.
Well, happy New Year to you. What kind of nursing do you do? I know there's so many different kinds. There's floor nurses and doctor office nurses.
So my career is 27 years long. I started out at the bedside. I've done home health. I have been a director of a nursing home, and most of my, last years have been in managed care in the insurance industry. And actually, December 30th was my last day in corporate America. So I am stepping into full-time entrepreneurship.
Well, very nice. How did you get into being plant-based in the first place?
Well, in 2001, I was introduced to it then I just met her through my godmother was going to a lifestyle center, and I met Donna Green Goodman. And she had a presentation. It was wonderful. She was plant-based, and she was able to reverse an aggressive form of breast cancer as a result of going plant-based, as well as adopting other lifestyle principles. And so now it's a little bit of a journey, but in 2001, doing that presentation, because the food was very delicious, very tasty, I was like, okay, I think I can do this. But in my mind, I'm going through a checklist. Okay, yeah, I can do the dairy real quick. I can do the meat. I'm okay with that. But had a little challenge with the cheese. We had a little thing going on, me and the cheese. So I went vegetarian immediately in 2001. It wasn't until December 1st, 2016 that I went plant-based. So it was a little bit of a journey of letting go of the cheese. And then December 1st is when I went totally plant-based.
Right. How easy or hard is it to be plant-based in the South? I just heard a name for the South. I never heard it. They called it the stroke belt.
Well, it's a possibility. Sometimes our food may be a little high in salt, fat, and sugar, which are the usual culprits. That is probably why, but I've never heard of it either.
Yeah, I forget one of the doctors was calling it the stroke belt or the soda belt, because I guess they drink a lot of soda. Do you
well,
find
that's true too? One of the big industries is right here in Atlanta.
do you find a lot of like-minded people there?
I do. And, for me, I never, when I, became plant-based, and I still to this day, I never force anyone to change. You just prepare the food and create a beautiful plate, because if it's not appetizing, it's not going to go on the fork. And then it has to have a lot of flavor, because if it doesn't have flavor, why is it on the plate? So I, just share the food with people, and then they like it and they are open to, wanting to transition.
You have a booklet that you've given me a link to that I can share with the audience. It's called the African Heritage Power Plate Booklet. What is that?
Yes. So this is the, I might do it. Do I need to adjust my light?
Well, it's a little bright when you get close to the camera.
Okay. How about now?
Let me adjust it. Yeah, it's funny. The glare is just right there. How many of you guys have ever had Hoppin' John before? It just sounds like beans and rice, but a different kind of legume.
I'll tell you, is that a little bit better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Well, so let me just share with you the full menu, what it's supposed to be on New Year's Day. Of course, it's Hoppin' John. Like I said, the beans and rice, the black-eyed peas and rice. And some people don't call it Hoppin' John. Like I said, in Charleston, South Carolina, they call it Hoppin' John, but everyone else just say black-eyed peas. But on that plate are to be collard greens. Like I said, black-eyed peas is for love. Collard greens is for money. Cornbread, because anytime you have greens, you must have cornbread. They are a perfect combination, never to be separated. And that's to represent gold. And you have tomatoes for health. So that is the plate for New Year's Day. But as you asked me about the African Heritage Power Plate, this was something that I had envisioned when I became a Food for Life instructor, because in 2015, I became a Taste of African Heritage instructor with Old Ways. And then 2017, when I was accepted as a Food for Life instructor, my application, I was like, it would be great to connect two great organizations to create what was the African, still seems like it's a lot of glare.
It's okay, I can see it.
Okay, so Old Ways is a company that really talks about going back to the old ways, or the traditional ways of eating, because for many cultures, the traditional way was predominantly plant-based. So they created the African Heritage Power Plate in 2011. Again, because it's important for cultural relevance, because it's a sense of connectivity and being familiar. And so, I wanted to combine this with the power plate that Dr. Neil Barnard and PCRM, or Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, created in 1991. And so I was like, it really would be great to have representation of my culture. And so February 2020 was when it came about. 2017 was when I, mentioned it to both organizations, and we worked on it, and timing is everything. So February 2021 was when this one was birthed.
Nice, yeah.
Wonderful.
I said wonderful, and we're putting the link in the show notes if people want to check it out.
Yes. So inside it goes over the different foods that are unique in the power plate. So the power plate really serves as a guide of how you're to build your plate when you eat every meal. Having the whole grains is key. And then the legumes, or the beans, those that are in a pod: beans, peas, lentils, nuts, and seeds. Your fruit and your vegetables, including your dark green leafy vegetables, as well as your root vegetables and all other vegetables. And so once you go inside of the booklet, it gives you examples of those foods in each category. Then it tells you, because I know you've been a busy lady today. You've already done an interview this morning with Dr. McDougall, and he was talking about protein, because a lot of times we get that question, being plant-based, where do you get your protein? And protein is in every plant. But it talks about how you'll get the nutrition you need by following this guide, as well as your plate will be very colorful. Also inside, there are 8 recipes, 2 of which we'll talk about today. The Hoppin' John salad, this is from Old Ways. And again, this booklet is a combination of both organizations. And so Old Ways have one, but I have my own twist on this recipe. Then you have the sweet potato casserole. On here, it has pumpkin as the topping, but another substitute can be pecans or pecans from the South. And then the other recipe is jollof rice, and that is from West Africa. Again, this is a representation of the diaspora. And then you have yuca fries, which is unique in South America. And then the African heritage spicy chickpeas, that's from West Africa. Jerk lentils from the Caribbean. Mango and papaya afterchop, which is just a fruit salad from the Caribbean. And of course, from the American style cornbread.
Yeah, you gotta have cornbread.
Yes, yes. So that's what we're gonna, the two that we'll go over today are the cornbread and the Hoppin' John. I want to share a little bit about the cornbread. I did it a little different, again, than what's in here, my own little twist on it. So when you look at the recipe, and I hope that everyone can see it, or if you have an opportunity to go over to the website to download it. So on this recipe, it talks about, and I'm going to adjust the light if you don't mind me stepping away again.
Not at all. And guys, I put the recipe in the show notes as well, so you don't even have to click on the link if you don't want, but the show notes being on YouTube. You won't be able to see show notes on Facebook, but if you go to YouTube right now, refresh your screen, you should be able to see the recipe.
Okay, there you go. But how is that?
Oh, I can see it perfectly.
Okay, so in the cornbread, it mentions having yellow grits, which is corn, or cornmeal. And so I have the cornmeal. You can do wheat flour, whole wheat flour. If you do, you definitely, anytime that you're making the cornbread, you want to sift your dry ingredients. And so if you use the whole wheat flour, you may want to sift it twice because it's a very dense flour compared to how you normally make it with all-purpose flour. So you want to do that. And if you're gluten intolerant, you can use oat flour. And if you can't find oat flour in the grocery store, just use your old-fashioned oats and grind them up in a blender, food processor, or I use a coffee grinder for a lot of things, and I grind up the oats there. And I want to share with you two products that I was able to find in the grocery store recently. It's called 1-to-1 baking flour that's gluten-free. One is by King Arthur, that's gluten-free. And then Bob's Red Mill also have one that's 1-to-1. And so any time that you're using, would use all-purpose flour, or you see that in the recipe, you can substitute these. And that's how I make my cornbread, how I bake a cake. I use these, or my biscuits, because a Southern girl, we have to have biscuits. The other part in the recipe for the cornbread, let's see, where is it? Was the baking powder. I also included baking soda in it because we're not using eggs. You want to have those leaveners so that, number one, is tenderizing the flour and is causing a rise in the bread. And so I use that. And I also use Bob Red Mill egg replacer, and I'll show that to you also. And it's gluten-free. So I use that as well as my egg replacer. And I use applesauce in place of oil. And we do have sugar in there, but you can substitute and use date paste, or you can use maple syrup. You would use less though, because they're intense and you don't need as much if you want just a little bit of sweet. This is not to make a cake, it's just to balance out the flavor. Now here on it, it has 1 cup of milk. I use 1 1/4 cup of milk, and I put 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, or you can use any type of citrus or acid. What that does, again, in the South, we have cornbread. Cornbread is made with buttermilk, and that is how you make buttermilk. 1 cup of your non-dairy milk to 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. And again, that tenderizes that flour and give you a lighter product. So I have the cornbread. I've kind of already done some prepared of it, but you'll see how it is. It's still soft, right? It's not a very dense cornbread. So that's that. So as we move along, any questions, Chef AJ, that has come up?
Let me see. Yeah, if you guys have questions, put it in the chat. just some comments. A lot of people like to use oat flour and Bob Red Mill product. You know, it's so funny. I thought you said bacon flour at first, and you said, I'm like, what?
I may have.
No, it's just, I sometimes don't hear so well with you. And I was like, what? I know you said Bob's Red Mill, but it sounded like bacon. And I'm like,
okay. All right. So if there aren't any questions, we'll go ahead and get started. And what we'll do, we'll start with our dressing first. Okay. Pardon me for stepping away. I'm just getting everything.
Absolutely. Linda Middlesworth says she hopes she gets to meet you at the next PCRM conference.
Yes.
And Anne, I have put the link to the booklet both in the chat box and the show notes.
Thank you.
So just check
All right.
there.
I want to share. I'm sorry, you were saying something?
No, just telling people that everything's in the show notes.
Okay. So in order to still keep it low fat, because the guidelines with PCRM, or Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, is not only whole food, plant-based, meaning things in their natural state, but also low fat, because that is important for heart health and for, maintaining a healthy weight. So I like peanut butter. And the reason I chose, this is again, different from the recipe in the booklet. When I think about the African heritage in West Africa, when they eat greens with peanut butter and coconut. And so in my mind, I said, let's be creative and make a peanut butter vinaigrette. I still wanted to keep it low fat. So normally when you purchase peanut butter, the fat grams on there can range from 10 to 16 grams. But this here is 1.5, both of them are 1.5 grams per serving, and a serving is 2 tablespoons. And so these are the 2 products, PB2, that you can find at any grocery store, not just at Whole Foods. Here in the South, Publix, Kroger, they all have it. This was one I found at the farmer's market here as well. But you can put it in a smoothie. But again, it really does very well taste very like the same thing that you would buy in the store. It's just not all the fat.
Nice.
So you start with a half cup. Can you see me okay? A half cup.
And there is a question on the PB2. Does the PB2 or the other powdered peanut butter contain sugar?
Let's see. Oh.
And if it does it ever come without it?
It does. It does have the sugar and a little salt. Sorry.
Darn, why can't they just dehydrate the peanuts?
I know. I know. Or I guess, we have to get in the kitchen and make our own. All right. So in here, we have the peanut butter powder. You have, we're going to mix up the peanut butter first. So to the peanut butter, it's a 2-to-1 ratio. So 2 parts, which is 1/2 cup of the peanut butter, and then 1/4 cup of water. Okay. So you just mix that together to make your peanut butter. And you'll see in just a second, it's going to look just like the peanut butter. Starts out watery, then it becomes thick, like your peanut butter. Can you see it?
Wow.
So it started out watery, and then it got there. So next, I'm going to add in 2 tablespoons, because now we're creating the vinaigrette. 2 tablespoons of maple syrup, 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. And again, when I think about the diaspora, you're going to have some ginger and you're going to have some garlic. So we're adding that. And
what does your apron say?
Back to the root. So back to the root, and I do have my PCRM pen on as well, but back to the root. So my company name is Full Circle Health Coaching LLC. And I started that company in 2013 because I wanted to create something to help my community, because the African American or Black community suffers greatly with a lot of chronic conditions. And so Full Circle Health Coaching is a health and wellness solution that offers evidence-based and cultural relevant services to prevent heart disease in women of color. And then the nutrition and cooking part of my business is Back to the Root. So again, going back to our African root, our food ways in order to uproot these chronic conditions. Because when you think about, again, the ancestors, they ate predominantly plant-based. And so they were the epitome of health prior to enslavement. They were the epitome of health. So, and I'm going to put just a little bit, however spicy you want it, you do it how you want. But in the South, you're going to have hot with your greens or your peas. So that's why we're going to put just a little bit. But again, a recipe is a guide. You make it your own. So we just add a little bit for a little kick. So our dressing is ready. There. But yes,
Deitra, one of the viewers said that there's a product called PB2 Pure that is like the PB2, but without any added salt and sugar. And I found it on Amazon, so I'll just post a link in the chat.
Okay, great. I haven't seen that one. I've only seen the PB2, but okay, that's good to know. All right, so our dressing is ready. Now I'm going to go get our collard greens and show you what they look like and how to cut them. And I know so often with the collard greens, we kind of cook them a long time. I'm still here. I'm just over
here. Yeah, because Adrian has a question. Adrian has a question. Does it have to be peanut butter? Could it be cashew butter or almond butter?
Sure. It's to your liking. Okay. So I want to first show you what the collard greens look like before I start with everything here. So this is what the collard greens look like. This one, she's been through a lot, okay? She's torn and everything, but she is still good, okay? But this is what the collard green looks like. And so what you do, you want to take the stem out. I don't like the stem. Some people do use the stem, but I don't like it. You can use it in your stock or broth when you make it, but I don't like it. It makes it kind of tough for me. So what you want to do is cut the stem down the middle. And we remove the stem. And then you just roll it, fold it over, and then you roll it. I don't like to say like a cigar, but for lack of a bit, a burrito. Roll it like a burrito. How about that? Rather than a cigar. And once you roll it, then you cut it very thin. And I do the same thing whether I'm doing a salad or cooking. I cut them real thin because you don't have to cook them as long when you do that. And so for safety, before you start cutting anything, be sure before you put your cutting board down, put a wet paper towel or a wet towel to keep your cutting board secure, because you don't want to be sliding around. I have had an injury before, and so we don't want that. Okay, we want to remain safe. And then the other side, your less dominant hand, you want to make a C, and then you put it down on the table like that. You're creating a cloth, C for cloth, and it will be like you're moving like a cloth as you go along. So I'm going to cut these real thin. And then once I do that, I go down the middle and cut them again, because when you're cooking, you want to think about how it will fit on the fork. Okay, so that's what we do there. And I already had cut up some already, you'll see. And so I'm going to add these to it. Any questions or anyone else? How else do they prepare their greens?
First, I just want to thank Joanne Lewis for a super chat donation. This is great with that all these wonderful guests on New Year's Day. We're actually doing 3 shows. So this is a fun name. So Nutritionist RDN likes your apron and wants one. Do you sell your apron?
I do not, but stay tuned. So the other thing I wanted to share when cooking greens, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, Chef AJ, in the South, and you know, maybe more than the South, but I know, again, it's always about flavor. And when having greens, and you may hear it mentioned as greens, it could be collards or what have you, but we'll say greens. But mixing the greens, because you want to, you know, and anytime you're eating, you want to create a party in your mouth, you know, appealing to all of your taste buds. So you think of the salty greens, like the beet green, spinach, and Swiss chard. They're salty. but they're milder in flavor. And then you have your hearty greens, like your collard greens and your kale, the curly or the flat leaf or dinosaur kale. They're kind of chewier, but they have a little bit of bitterness. And then you mix with peppery greens, like a mustard or turnip. What can I tell you? But it's truly a party in your mouth, and it causes you to dance in your seat. That's what it does when you cook those together and you have the smoked flavor. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, we're not cooking. I know we normally cook our greens. Today we're gonna do it a little different. So what I'm gonna do in order to tenderize the greens, we're gonna add some lemon. We're gonna add a little bit of spices to that. And what else am I gonna do to it? Avocado, because I'm not using oil. Usually people would use oil with the green, to help, because usually it's the fat that helps carry the flavor, but we're gonna use a whole fat, which is our avocado. So let me get that and we're gonna get started. Okay. So I'm not sure if you all growing up with the lemon, my Aunt Mary, my mom's older sister, was like grandmother to me, and she passed away in April in 2020. But I remember her making lemonade, or anytime she was, doing anything with the lemons. My mom as well. She would roll it, and that would kind of loosen up the juices inside the lemon. So I'm going to do that because we're going to use half of this lemon to what I would say cook. Because if there anyone in the audience that's raw, they usually will eat their greens not cooked, and that would be considered your uncooking, if you will. This lemon here is kind of tough, so we're gonna get the juices out. Oh, one thing, anytime you're using the juice, you also want the zest of the lemon. And so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use a microplane, but you can use a grater. If you don't have a microplane, you can use a grater, the smaller side of it, and you just wanna go around and get the skin off, not too deep, because you go to the white part of it, it's very bitter, but it adds a lot of flavor to your food. So we're going to zest just a little bit. And it's the natural oils and the essence of, and you see I'm going around in a circle, not staying in one spot long, going around in here. And this is what you get, and you just tap that in there. The fragrance there is just amazing. Now we're gonna cut it in half and then juice the lemon. And I like tools, pardon me, but I do. I like tools. It helps you in the kitchen. So I'm gonna get my lemon squeezer here. And part of me, my kitchen is not so large, so I couldn't have everything on an island. I have a mobile island here that I have. So anyway, if you have an apparatus like this, or if you find one, what you do, you put your cut side down. I know you would think it would go the other way, but you put your cut side down. I'm just gonna use just a little bit of this lemon. The acid is gonna cause it to break down. When you cook your collard greens, some people use apple cider vinegar. It does that. Okay. I think that's good for me. Okay. Then I'm putting my seasoning in there. So, when you cook greens, normally you want some type of smoked meat. The replacement of that is smoked paprika. And when you think about the pork, again, I apologize for referencing the meat, but I just have to give you a point of reference. So when you're cooking and you use the pork gives you the fat, salt, and a little bit of sweetness, and the smoky. So that's what we're replacing by having all of the seasoning there. I have onion powder, garlic powder, a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and like I said, the smoked paprika. And then we're gonna have the fat. It's gonna be our avocado.
Yeah, I love smoked paprika. It's so good. It's my favorite spice. I think it's my favorite spice.
It is, mine as well. And I made a chicken sauce, cheese sauce the other day, and I put the smoked paprika in there, and it was delicious. All right, so what I'm gonna do I'm going to get in with my hand. And what I'm going to do is massage it lovingly. So when you're cooking, you always want to cook with love. So, you know, Carla Hall says this, if you are not in a good mood, make a reservation or call in, because you want to prepare whatever energy you put into the food ends up in the final product. So you're gonna see, you see what the greens look like now. And so after I massage them, they're going to wilt down a little bit. So I'm gonna do this about a minute or at least until I, feel like they are marinated, what you would call it, enough. And so when you're cooking, you always want to cook with all of your senses, with your taste, touch, feel, smell, when you're preparing food. So you see how it was higher, it's very small now. Even when you cook greens, the same thing, they cook down to a little bit of nothing. That's why people normally cook a mess of greens. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, no, it's funny because there was that purple kale, this beautiful purple kale was on sale at Sprouts for like these 4 huge bundles for $5. So I bought it and they were starting to go bad. So I cooked 2 of them in my 8-quart pressure cooker. It filled the whole thing. When it was done, it was like, where did it go?
Where are they?
It's like, yeah. And it's like, my husband goes, you can't eat all that. And I'm like, well, not right now. But once I cooked it, it was like, there was nothing left.
Yes. Now the greens right now, you can smell the smokiness from the smoked paprika. They're seasoned very well. I think I'm satisfied with how this looks. Again, using your senses, and I'm going to have to wash my hands from this, but you saw how they started out. This is what they look like now. They look like they've been cooked.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to go wash my hands. Are there any questions while I do that?
I will look while you wash your hands. Okay. I've never heard of callaloo.
Callaloo, yes, that's the Caribbean. They usually use callaloo, and it puts you in the mind of spinach.
Yeah, because they're asking, how do you compare callaloo to collard greens?
I would compare more to spinach than I would collards. Mm-hmm. All right, be right back, but I'm still here. I can hear if you have any questions.
Yeah, they can't get collard greens in Australia. I wonder why.
Oh, good question. I'm not sure, but do they have kale?
Do you have kale in Australia? What's everybody's favorite green? Type it in the chat. Mine is rainbow chard because it's pretty.
Yeah, I like chard too.
I love when the stems are pink and orange and yellow. I just think it's so pretty.
Yes, it's beautiful on the plate. I had a Friendsgiving, my first online Friendsgiving, and the menu, cooking class, and the menu we had was black eyed pea salad, and we did mixed greens, and I did Swiss chard, collards, and mustards, cornbread, and banana pudding. So,
ooh, banana pudding sounds amazing.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to get all the other ingredients. All right, the star of the show, which are the black eyed peas. So I had canned peas. Now, if you're not able to find low sodium, sometimes it's hard to find it. And with everything going on now, limited supply. Be sure to wash the peas very well. It will reduce the sodium by 40% by rinsing them very well, okay? So this is what we have here, our peas. Now, black-eyed peas in West Africa is referenced as cow peas. Just wanted to share that. If you heard someone mention cow peas, it's the same thing as black-eyed peas. And like I said, normally with the recipe, you would have rice. I want to share a little bit about rice. Now I'm substituting with quinoa, but a little bit about rice and about the ancestors. Were you familiar, AJ, that in Africa prior to enslavement, it was the women that cultivated the rice farm?
Did not know that.
The women that cultivated the rice farm, and those that knew that they were going to be enslaved, what they did was take the rice seeds and put them in their hair, and they braided or cornrowed their hair because, number one, they didn't know what they were going to eat in this new place, and they wanted to maintain their heritage. And when the enslaved ancestors were brought here, they settled mostly in the South, and it was in Charleston, South Carolina. That's where you see a lot of the rice farms. And the community in that area, have you heard of Gullah Geechee? Yeah, so Gullah Geechee, that's the community that still maintains a lot of the West African foodways, the language, all of that. And so the Gullah Geechee corridor is considered South Carolina, like on the coastal area, South Carolina, Georgia, and North Florida. But that is a little bit of history about the rice.
That's fascinating. Is that where the term cornrow came from? Because corn's a grain, and
that's a good question. Now that part I'm not sure about. Maybe someone else can tell us the history behind the name cornrow of the hair. But that's how they did, because when they braided their hair, the seed wouldn't move. I don't care how you moved it, the seed stayed within the braid.
Wow, that's good. Maybe because I play Jeopardy every day with Alexa, so I love learning new things. You never know if that's going to come up.
I know. But like I said, I'm substituting today with quinoa, which is another whole grain. Quinoa is in the South America. It's a South America grain, and it's called perfect protein because, like Dr. McDougall was talking about earlier, it has all of the essential amino acids. Pardon me, I keep walking away, but like I said, I don't have a whole lot of space.
Well, as long as you come back.
Huh?
As long as you come back, it's fine.
Yes, I come back. I will come back. So the quinoa, how I prepared it, which is sort of do it like pasta. So I cooked it as a half cup, and I don't know if I'm going to use all of it. It seems like I have less greens today than I've had in the past. And usually one bunch is 8 leaves, but anyway, it seems smaller than it did last time. So I'm gonna play it by ear. Again, cook by your senses. And I lost my train of thought, what I was just saying.
That's okay. I can rewind.
It will come back. All right, so the other things that I'm gonna add, like I mentioned, you have to have the tomatoes for good health. So I'm gonna get the tomatoes, and I did some red bell peppers as well, just for flavor, because usually when you think of the South and the Holy Trinity, and I didn't have any celery, but you can add that in there if you like, but it's usually onion, bell pepper, celery. So that's why I added a little bell pepper to that. And then we have our onions as well for flavoring. That was the bell pepper and the tomato.
When you worked as a nurse for almost 30 years, were you able to influence any of your patients into eating healthier?
Well, because I have worked in the hospital setting since 1998. And if you wouldn't mind me sharing a little bit, in 1998, I have my red onion, and I like green onions and cilantro in my salad. It really adds a pop of flavor in there and freshness. But in 1998, and again, I'm playing by ear here, what I'm gonna put. I don't want to overwhelm it because these are the background singers, the greens and the black eyed peas are the leads, okay? So I don't want the onions to overpower it. But in 1998, I had a patient, I was working night shift, and he had been in the hospital for a long time. He was in intensive care, and let me get my cilantro. He was in intensive care, and he weighed over 500 pounds. And while, being a patient, he had a very complex wound. So with doing wound care with him, I was in the room with him a long time. So I took that opportunity to talk to him, asking him questions. And now, as I look back at it, I'm going to mix everything together. I look back at it, it was me coaching without knowing what coaching was. So I asked him, how did you get to this point of, being at this weight, and what do you plan to do, once you are back home? Because this young man, he had to learn how to walk again, and he was in his 20s, and so he had some, childhood trauma that led to him being, overweight. And so I'll fast forward that once he discharged, he had to go to inpatient rehab again because he had to walk. And so when he finally discharged home, he went back to the old way of eating. And, I'm really sad to report that he passed away. And when I heard that news, Chef AJ, it was like, the wind was knocked out of me. I'm like, he's 20 years old, and, his life I know each of us are here for a time and season and a purpose. So I was like, wow, this is very young. And so that kind of changed my way of nursing at that time. I have always the Nightingale pledge of devoting myself to the well-being of those assigned to my care. Take that with me even to this day. But I then wanted to start changing my nursing care from the bedside to the table side, with teaching people how to cook, and the nutrition, understanding the science, and then the sidelines as a coach. Because as a coach, everyone has the answer within them, but the coach, just like in sports, they are there to pull out what's in you and to help you get to that desired goal. And that, has been my passion since 1998.
Well, I love that, from the bedside to the table side. That's beautiful.
Yes, yes. So can you guys see the beautiful color?
Oh, that looks delicious.
Yeah, so that's that. And so I'm going to plate it up because, like I said, it has to be appealing. So I'm going to put it in a salad bowl. And where is the salad bowl? Look, I did my mise en place, Chef AJ, and now I have, not like my kitchen is that big, but things where I can't find them. Okay, so here we go. And so what I did is, well, to make it pretty, I toasted some pecans, and we're going to put that on top, as well as our cornbread croutons. Here are the croutons on top. I would love to hear what other people do for New Year's, any traditions in other cultures.
Yeah, guys, type it in the chat if you have some traditional New Year's thing that you either eat or do. It might be different this year, of course, with the pandemic.
Yeah. So these are the croutons. So what will happen? They're crispy on the outside, but still a little soft on the inside. So they're a little different than regular croutons, but delicious. Okay. So I'm gonna put them on the top for a little design.
Jeline wants to know if you have a cookbook.
Not yet. Now, I will tell you, I had initially, so I wasn't always oil-free, but like I said, been vegan since December 1st, 2006. And so I was working on recipes with my Aunt Mary to convert my great-grandmother's recipe, as well as, I'm not sure if my Auntie Ann is on, my dad's mother, converting some of her recipes as well. But like I said, my Aunt Mary passed away. So I'm gonna have to go off of my mom and my Aunt Mary's daughter with tasting some of the recipes. So I'll tell you, so for Thanksgiving, I made sweet potato biscuits, oil-free. I made one of the recipes my Aunt Mary made when I was a little girl was, it was like a peach cobbler bread pudding, and the bread was biscuit. So I made that oil-free, and my family loved it. This, for Christmas, I made a grated sweet potato pudding. And again, the grated sweet potato pudding is my great grandmother's recipe, and I made it no oil, and my mom and my cousin loved it. So now I'll have to, kind of go off of memory and just what flavors I think I remember with those. But yeah, we had started working on that, but we will see. More to come.
Any of your family members plant-based?
Well, I have my dad's sister, and I want to show you guys without it falling out. Can you see?
Well, it looks delicious.
And then I'm gonna put some of the salad dressing on there. But that's the salad. My dad's sister, youngest sister, she has been vegetarian since I was little. And I tell you, when I was a little girl, and she would have us with her, and okay, we were going to Wendy's, okay? But she would order us, I can't even remember the burgers that Wendy's had, but she would order us the burger, and then she would order her one and say, with everything minus the meat. And you can imagine me, the little girl, and I'll tell you, I had a little bit of a mouth. But I was looking at her like, what is she doing? What is she doing? Ordering a sandwich without meat. But, you know, here we are today, fast forward, she's still very healthy. She is, I won't tell her age, but she is still sassy and very thin. My other family members, you know, enjoy eating vegetables. Growing up, everyone had a garden, and we didn't have as much land, but my dad still he would have tomatoes, peppers, and he helped till everyone else's garden. So everyone shared with each other. So like one of my aunts, she had cabbage, and she still does to this day, cabbage, corn, collards, turnips. So, you know, you would share that with your family. My other aunt would have the peas and things of that nature, and we would share that with each other. So they eat vegetables. They do eat vegetables. My mom has, you know, increased more eating vegetables, and she was able to come off some of her blood pressure medication, which I was happy to hear that. And she'll say, baby, I eat more vegetables these days. I said, okay, great. And she's 83. So yeah.
They were asking about the cornbread croutons. You didn't actually show how to make them, but the recipe is in the show notes.
I don't know if I put that one in there, but I'll share with you. So the cornbread, you know, I showed you, you know, shared with you how I made it. So I sift the dried ingredients, you know, add the baking powder, baking soda, the Bob red meal, egg replacer, making the sour milk, quote unquote buttermilk, and bake that in the oven on 400 for about 25 to 30 minutes. You know, you just like with a cake, you would, you know, stick the toothpick in the center to make sure it comes out clear. So what I did, I cooked the cornbread last night, and it's better when it's stale bread, you know. So I had it last night. And so what I did, I cut them up into small pieces, and then you can spray them with a little bit of water because you need it to be a little wet for your spices to, you know, adhere to the cornbread. And so you put them in the oven at 400 for about 10 to 15 minutes. Again, using your senses, you know, and testing to see if it's to your liking with the crispness. Like I said, the outside, you want it to be crispy, but you still want the center to be a little soft.
You know, I bet you could make them in the air fryer too.
Probably so. I don't have one, but I'm sure you could.
Oh, it's time.
It's just a convection oven, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have a whole lot of space. So that's why I don't. But I mean, I'm not sure if I shared with you that I am in Ruby Online Cooking School to become a professional plant-based chef. So that is on the list, as well as the Instapot.
Oh yeah, Instant Pot is great. Sandy wants to know, does your mom eat your plant-based meals?
Yes, she does. Yes, she does. So, okay, I have to tell you this story as well. So when I was vegetarian before I became vegan, just excited. I'm like, okay, now, because when I was 9 years old, I had a cousin that in her 20s, she passed away as a result of complications from obesity. And I tell you, I can remember the day like it was yesterday. I remember my mom being on the phone, you know, talking to my uncle. It was her brother's daughter. And just the sadness on my mom's face. I'm like, I don't like how my mom is looking. What's wrong? You know, and I've always been observant and, excuse me, looking around and seeing, you know, quite a few family members that, you know, had diabetes, amputations, dialysis. At a young age, I said I had to do something about this. And that's how I went into nursing. But fast forward, being excited about going vegetarian and saying this is something I can do to help my family. Thanksgiving, I can't remember exactly which year it was, but again, I was new into being a vegetarian. And I made cornbread dressing. Now, when I went home, Thanksgiving, and anyone from the South, no, you do not bring anything new home on Thanksgiving. You keep it traditional. So I had it and I took it to my Aunt Mary. Like I said, she was like grandmother to me, my mom's older sister, and she tasted it. No offense to anyone who likes stuffing, but she was like, this tastes like stuffing. I was sad. My feelings were all on my sleeve. I was about to cry. I said, okay, I need to put myself in timeout before I start acting up here. So I had to have a talk with myself. I said, okay, she's been cooking much longer than me, and she can tell me how to make this taste good. So got myself together, came back in, and shared with her what, asked her, what can I do to make it taste better? Of course, she told me to add some cream of mushroom soup, and what I do now, make my own using cashews to make it flavorful. And so fast forward, my family loves what I bring. So when I come home now for the holidays, like I shared with you some of the recipes I made this year. Last year I made a Hoppin parfait. So I layered it with rice, the black-eyed peas, and I made like a relish, like, just like salsa, but it was relish using tomatoes, jalapeno peppers, and I put it in a little bit of apple cider vinegar and season it just a little bit with a little salt and pepper. Because my daddy, when he used to eat his greens or his black-eyed peas, he always wanted a slice of a tomato and a slice of onion. And so it made me think of, okay, let me make that. And he loved pepper sauce. So that was me creating that. And my family loved that. So yeah, they like it now.
That's funny. Jennifer said, what cornbread recipe do you use to make the cornbread?
So like the one in the book, but the modifications, like I said, so I use a stone ground cornmeal. And again, it's been a challenge finding the fine grind type of cornmeal, but if I'm not able to find it, I use my coffee grinder to grind it to make it really light. So I use that, 1 cup of that, 1 cup of flour. Again, the two that I share, the Bob Red Mill or the King Arthur 1-to-1 gluten-free flour, or if you use whole wheat flour, again, you sift it. You're going to sift the dry ingredients anyway, but you may want to sift it twice if you're just using whole wheat flour. Or maybe you can do whole wheat flour, then whole wheat pastry flour. Again, you want a light and fluffy cornbread, not a dense one. And so you would sift that, you would put your salt, if you're using salt, you would use baking powder, baking soda, and I'll tell you 2 teaspoons, so I can tell you the exact measurements, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a half teaspoon of baking soda, half teaspoon of salt if you're using salt. And then I do 2 of the egg replacers. And how you make that is 2 tablespoons of the egg replacer to 4 tablespoons of water. Let that sit aside while you sifting everything. Also, for my milk, I use 1 1/4 cup of non-dairy milk. I like cashew milk because it's creamy. And so then you add 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar to that. Let that sit aside as well about 5 minutes. And it's going to looks like buttermilk. For my, where you would normally put oil or where you would normally put butter, like 1/4 cup, I substitute that for applesauce. And so that would go in your wet. So your wet would be your milk, the egg replacer, and your applesauce. That's what you would put in there. And like I said, in the recipe, there are 6 teaspoons of sugar. And you can, if you don't want to use the sugar, you can substitute that with date paste or maple syrup, maybe a little less. Again, we're not wanting a cake. We want it just to balance out from the acid that you have in there. So that's your wet. So your dry, you have sifted, pour over your wet in that, stir it real good. Don't overwork it though. That's my Aunt Mary would say, do not overwork that batter. And you mix that. And the other thing, I'm gonna show you this, is that my Aunt Mary cooked cornbread in the cast iron skillet. And so when you preheat your oven at 400, when you preheat it, you can put this in the oven, let it get hot, because you want the crispy edges. That's how you get the crispy edges. Allow the skillet, and if you don't have a cast iron skillet, that's fine. Still put whatever you're going to use for your cornbread, put it in the oven, let it get hot. And then once you're ready to put your batter in, take this out and you can pour it in and you're going to hear it sizzle. and that's your cornbread. Cook it
Right.
for 25 minutes, maybe 30, depending on how long it takes for that center to settle. And that's your cornbread.
Wow, that sounds delicious. Karen says your skin is glowing. Do you have a skincare routine?
I use, and thank you, Karen. So I use, it's a product called Pure, P-U-R, and it's cruelty-free and vegan. So I just use the cleanser and the moisturizer, and I exfoliate maybe 2 times a week. It's the same product that they have, Pure, and that's it.
Oh, nice. How can people get involved with your work or follow you or keep in touch?
Yes. So my website, like I said, my business name is Full Circle Health Coaching LLC, and I have to put the whole name because there's another company that's Full Circle Health Coaching. So LLC is important to include. Full Circle Health Coaching LLC.com, and that is the same on YouTube, and that is the same on Facebook.
Nice. And and I posted everything in the show notes. Well, this has just been a wonderful start to the new year. Your recipe looks delicious.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you seem so passionate about what you do. So good luck with the next chapter in your life. And that's quite an accomplishment, 30 years of nursing almost. And I love that, from bedside to tableside. That should be your tagline.
Thank you. Might have to use that.
Yeah. And I didn't realize that you said something about Florence. I know physicians
Florence
do
Nightingale.
Pledge. I didn't know there was one. I know the physicians do the Hippocratic Oath. So you actually take a Florence Nightingale pledge.
Mm-hmm. With your pen. Well, I don't have my pen. I lost my pen. But with the penning ceremony, you have the Nightingale pledge. And the latter part of that pledge is that you're devoting your self to the well-being of those assigned to your care. And I take that with me, whether I'm at the bedside, tableside, or the sideline, because I take nursing to heart. So I'm still nursing. It's just not in the traditional way.
Wow, that's beautiful. I know Donna's saying she looks so young. I know, really, she does.
And listen, I just turned 50 October 25th.
That's hard to believe. You look, I would say, 30s maybe. You look amazing.
Thank you.
Wow. Well, it's so nice to meet you, and I wish you good luck in your new venture, and thank you for all you do to get people to eat plants.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to be of service today. And I bid everyone health and abundance for 2021.
Thank you so much. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Believe it or not, we still have one more show today at 2 p.m. when I'll be featuring John Pierre, JP, for our monthly Q&A. Thank you so much, and Happy New Year to you. Bye.